Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Govinda Dasa Jaya Govinda Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Rama Hare Hare जय। श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
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 नारायण नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नस्तप्रेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। Krishna, reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, Chapter 23, Maharaj Prithu's going back home, text 32. Brahmano Brahma Varnasi.
Brahmano Brahma Varnasi.
Brahmano Brahma Varchasi.
Brahmano Brahma Varchasi.
Rajanya Jagatipati.
Rajanyo Jagatipati.
Vaishyapatan Vitpati Syaj.
Vaishyapatan Vitpati Syaj.
Shudra Sattamatam Iyat.
Shudra Sattamatam Iyat.
Brahmano Brahma Varchasi.
Brahmano Brahma Varchasvi.
Rajanyo Jagatipati.
Rajanyo Jagatipati.
Vaishyapatan Vitpati Syat.
Vaishyapatan Vitpati Syaj.
Judra Sattamatam Iyat.
Shudra Sattamatam Iyat.
Brahmano Brahma Varchasi.
Brahmano Brahma Varchasvi.
Rajanyo Jagatipati.
Rajanyo Jagatipati.
Vaishyapatan Vitpati Syaj.
Vaishyapatan Vitpati Syaj.
Judra Sattamatam Iyat.
Shudra Sattamatam Iyat.
Brahmano Brahma Varchasvi.
Brahmano Brahma Varchasvi.
Rajanyo Jagatipati.
Rajanyo Jagatipati.
Vaishyapatan Vitpati Syaj.
Vaishyapatan Vitpati Syaj.
Shudra Sattamatam Iyat.
Shudra Sattamatam Iyat.
Brahmano Brahma Varchasvi.
Brahmano Brahma Varchasvi.
Rajanyo Jagatipati.
Rajanyo Jagatipati.
Vaishyapatan Vitpati Syaj.
Vaishyapatan Vitpati Syaj.
Shudra Samatamiyat.
Shudra Sattamatam Iyat.
Brahmano Brahma Varchasvi.
Brahmano Brahma Varchasvi.
Rajanyo Jagatipati.
Rajanyo Jagatipati.
Vaishyapatan Vitpati Syaj.
Vaishyapatan Vitpati Syaj.
Shudra Satyamatam Iyat.
Shudra Sattamatam Iyat.
Mataji.
Brahmano Brahma Varchasvi.
Brahmano Brahma Varchasvi.
Rajanyo Jagatipati.
Rajanyo Jagatipati.
Vaishyapatan Vitpati Syaj.
Vaishyapatan Vaishyapatan Vitpati Syat.
Shudra Sattamatamiya.
Shudra Sattamatamiya.
Brahmano Brahma Varchasvi.
Brahmano Brahma Varchasvi.
Rajanyo Jagati Pati.
Rajanyo Jagati Pati.
Vaishyapatan Vitpati Syat.
Vaishyapatan Vitpati Syat.
Shudra Sattamatamiya.
Shudra Sattamatamiya.
Brahmana,
Brahmana.
the Brahmanas. Brahma Varchasi,
Brahma Varchasvi.
one who has attained the power of spiritual success.
One who has attained the power of spiritual success.
Rajasa,
Rajasa.
the royal order.
The royal order.
Jagati Pati,
Jagatipati.
the king of the world.
The king of the world.
Vaishya,
Vaishya.
the mercantile class of men.
The mercantile class of men.
Patan,
Patan.
by reading.
By reading.
Vitpati,
Vitpati.
becomes master of animals.
Becomes master of animals.
Syat,
Syat.
becomes.
Becomes.
Sudra,
Shudra.
the laborer class of men.
The laborer class of men.
Sattamatam,
Sattamatam.
the position of a great devotee.
The position of a great devotee.
Yat,
Yat.
attains.
Attains.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. If one hears of the characteristics of Prithu Maharaj and is a Brahmana, he becomes perfectly qualified with Brahminical powers. If he is a Kshatriya, he becomes a king of the world. If he is a Vaishya, he becomes a master of other Vaishyas and many animals. And if he is a Sudra, he becomes the topmost devotee. Please repeat after me. If one hears of the characteristics of Prithu Maharaj
If one hears of the characteristics of Prithu Maharaj
and is a Brahmana,
and is a Brahmana,
he becomes perfectly qualified
he becomes perfectly qualified
with Brahminical powers.
with Brahminical powers.
If he is a Kshatriya,
If he is a Kshatriya,
he becomes a king of the world.
he becomes a king of the world.
If he is a Vaishya,
If he is a Vaishya,
he becomes a master of other Vaishyas and many animals.
he becomes master of all Vaishyas and many animals.
And if he is a Shudra,
If he is a Shudra,
he becomes the topmost devotee.
he becomes the topmost devotee.
Purport. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is recommended that one should become a devotee regardless of one's condition, whether one is without desire, akama, or with desire, sakama, or whether one desires liberation, moksha kama. He is advised to worship the Supreme Lord and execute devotional service unto Him. By so doing, one attains all perfection in any field of life. The process of devotional service, especially hearing and chanting, is so powerful that it can bring a person to the perfectional stage. In this verse, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras are mentioned. But here it should be understood that that reference is to the Brahmana who is born in a Brahminical family, the Kshatriya who is born in a Kshatriya family, the Vaishya who is born in a Vaishya family, and the Sudra who is a Sudra, in a Sudra family. But whether one is a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Sudra, he can attain perfection simply by hearing and chanting. To take birth in a family of Brahmanas is not the ultimate finishing touch. One must have the power of a Brahmana, which is called Brahma Tejas. Similarly, taking birth in a royal family is not the all-in-all. One must possess the power to rule the world. Similarly, taking birth as a Vaishya is not all. One must possess hundreds or thousands of animals specifically cows, and rule over other Vaishnavas, as Nanda Maharaj did in Vrindavan. Nanda Maharaj was a Vaishya who possessed 900,000 cows and ruled over many cowherd men and boys. A person who is born in a Shudra family can become greater than a Brahmana simply by accepting devotional service and giving oral reception to the pastimes of the Lord and his devotees. Brahmano Brahma Vaktrasvi Rajanyo Chagati Puti Vaishyapatan Vitpati Syach Chudra Sattamatam Iyat. If one hears of the characteristics of Prithu Maharaj and is a Brahmana, he becomes perfectly qualified with Brahminical powers. If he is a Kshatriya, he becomes a king of the world. If he is a Vaishya, he becomes a master of other Vaishyas and many animals. And if he is a Shudra, he becomes the topmost devotee. Om Jnana Tivarandasya Jnananjana Sharakaya Chakshurunmritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovisvaram Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadanti Svadahantikam. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, this is a very interesting verse. Prabhupada makes the point in his purport. He refers to a verse from the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Akama sarvakama va moksha kama dharidi tivrena bhakti yogena yachidam purusham param. That whether one has no desire, or one is full of desire, or one desires liberation, in any way, an intelligent man should always dovetail his activities, for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. The reference here is given to the three divisions which are described in the Vedic scriptures, which are Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, and Bhakti Path. The Vedic scriptures actually deal mainly with 4 topics: Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. In that way, they show the living entities, the conditioned soul, how to elevate himself to the perfectional stage. And Dharma means different rules and regulations, guidance are given to the living entities, how to perform properly in order to in order to be able to attain his desired goals, which are Artha and Kama, meaning attaining different values in order to satisfy his senses. This is actually Karma Kanda. In order to become happy in this world, the living entities try to follow different processes in order to attain material happiness. But then at one stage, or at one point in time, the living entities realizes that he can't be always happy. And he questions why. That is the entrance into the Jnanakanda stage, where one inquires and tries out to find different ways in order to acquire knowledge, in order to get answers to his questions. There is actually a very beautiful exchange which has been described by Srila Bhakti-Char Maharaj, which we celebrate his Vyasa Puja today. He actually recalls an incident where Prabhupada once gave the statement that in order to preach to the utmost extent, it is expected by the devotee to be fully aware of Sat Darshan, means the 6 divisions of Vedic philosophy, which is Karma Mimamsa, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, and finally Vedanta, or Uttar Mimamsa. At that time, Srila Bhakti-Char Maharaj questions himself, because in the Vedic scriptures it is written that 5 of these 6 processes are actually atheistic. And even in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, Narad Muni states that Vedanta many times is also atheistic, due to being understood in an impersonal way. So he asked Srila Prabhupada this very question. And then Prabhupada said that if one regards them separately, they're atheistic. But if they're considered to be different stages in the process of perfection, meaning different steps of a ladder, then they actually will lead the devotee to the ultimate goal, which is devotional service. The Vedic scripture actually facilitate all living entities, meaning all desires which a living entity can have are facilitated and described to the perfect way in the Vedic literatures, how to pursue in order to progress. As we all know, there are 18 Puranas. Out of these 18 Puranas, 6 are for the people in the mode of ignorance, 6 are for people mode of passion, and 6 are for people in the mode of goodness. And Srimad Bhagavatam is the Amalam Puran, which is for the devotees, for living entities who are in pure goodness. So there we can see that different, according to the stages of consciousness, different living entities are in, they are facilitated in the Vedic scriptures, meaning different rules and regulations have been given in order to elevate. So the first stage is Karmakanda, one who wants to fulfill his desires. So there are many processes are given in the Vedic scripture how to attain the desired goal, up to the goal to reach the highest planet in the material creation, which is Satyaloka. But then Prabhupada explains further that it is not possible to be always situated in happiness. This is the nature of material existence, that there is suffering. So when the living entity realizes that, the question will come, why I'm suffering? And that is the stage of Nyaya, logic. The living entity questions why I'm suffering and finds different ways, looks for the reason, the cause of this suffering, which leads him to the next stage, which is Vaisheshika. Vaisheshika is a philosophical concept which describes the material universe according to the atomic theory, that the whole material existence is built up in very small particles. And finally that leads the individual to understand that actually what we are perceiving is an illusion, because it's composed of small little particles, whereas we see different bodies, different forms. That will lead to the next stage of Sankhya. Sankhya describes the ingredients of the material creation. There are 24 ingredients in this material world. Let's see whether we can get them together. So, Sankhya describes that there are 5 gross material elements, which are earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And there are 5 senses, which are the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the ear, and skin. Then further, it has been analyzed that when the ether, when the ear interacts with ether, sound is produced. When the skin interacts with air, touch is produced. When fire interacts with the eyes, form is produced. When the tongue interacts with water, taste is produced. And when the nose interacts with earth, what is the last one? Smell. Smell is produced. So we have 15 ingredients. Then there are 5 working senses, which are the arms, the legs, speech, the belly, and the genitals. So they're 20 in number. Then furthermore, there are 3 subtle elements, which are mind, intelligence, and false ego. And finally, Mahatattva, the complete material energy. But amongst these 24 elements, they're all objective. The subject is missing. And the subject, which has been described, is completely of opposite nature. It is the spirit soul, and the source of the spirit soul, the super soul. So that actually, identifying these 24 material elements plus the 2 spiritual elements, which is the individual soul and the super soul, leads to the next step, to the process of yoga. Because Vedic scriptures gives us the information that the super soul is situated in the heart. So from here we also can see that up until now all the different processes are actually focused outside. But now with Sankhya, processes focus inside. The yoga process has 8 limbs, which start with yam and niyam, asan, pratyahara, dhyan, dharana. One is missing. Pranayama. So we see I'm not a good yogi. We start again. Yam, niyam, asan, pranayam, pratyahara, dhyan, dharana, samadhi. So there, it starts with yam and niyam, rules, what to do, niyam, what not to do. Then asan, finding suitable sitting posture. Then pranayam, controlling the breathing process. And then pratyahara, withdrawing the senses from outside, inside. That is actually the stage where all material activities are stopped and the focus is directed towards inside. Then dhyan, meditation. Dharana, focusing, concentrating. And finally, samadhi, the goal of yoga, which means that the super soul in the heart is perceived. And at that stage, it is said, when the living entity, when the individual soul meets the super soul, when the infinitesimal small meets the infinite, naturally, out of respect, it bows down. And that is the start of bhakti, surrender. When we realize how insignificant and how small we are, and we see the unlimited greatness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, naturally we bow down in awe and reverence. And this is the start of Uttakanda, or Vedanta Bhakti. So we can see that if they're taken, these different philosophical concepts and processes, if they're taken separately, they're actually depriving the individual reaching the ultimate goal of surrender. And in that way they're considered to be atheistic. But if they are taken to be different steps of a ladder, finally reaching to that goal, they're actually perfectly all right. And that in another way actually also shows what is the advantage of a preacher to be aware of these different stages. Because being aware of these different stages or different processes, he is able to accommodate different living entities according to their stage of consciousness and treat them, meaning engage them, according to their capacities in devotional service. Because as it is stated in that verse, akama, sarvakama, mokshakama, va, the ingredient which actually makes us progress is finally bhakti. Without bhakti, nothing can be achieved. Hare Krishna, Jai Shri Shri Gaura-Nitai, Jai Shri Chaitanya Baladev Subhadra Maharaj Ki Jai. Therefore, also it is described in Srimad Bhagavad, in Bhagavad Gita by Krishna. Therefore, different types of pious living entities who direct themselves to devotional service. That is, the one who is in need of money, the one who is suffering, the inquisitive, and the one who is looking for knowledge. Accordingly, they can be also related to the different stages. The one who is suffering naturally, he is full of desires in order to enjoy his senses, but not able. But he approaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead in order to fulfill his desires. In a similar way, the one who is in need, then the inquisitive is in the stage of jnana, as well as the one who looks for the absolute truth, the philosopher. But Prabhupada makes here a very interesting point for a devotee. Once again remembering that these are just steps of a different ladder in order to reach the ultimate goal, which is bhakti, pure bhakti, devotional service. Prabhupada actually gives a very illustrative story. He recounts that in Bengal there is the habit that when a couple marries, the bridegroom travels with the party, means the bridegroom and the whole family, they're traveling in order to meet the groom. And in Bengal, there are a lot of rivers. They're considered to be the highways, Bengal and Bangladesh especially. So one time, the bridegroom party prepared to go to meet with the groom party. So they set up on a boat, and the idea was that, because it took some time, they will enter the boat and in the evening, and the boatman will go and bring them to the desired destination, they will reach in the morning, and then there will be the preparation for the marriage which will take place the following day. So everybody was in a good mood. The weather was nice, there was a soft breeze, so everybody went finally and took rest. So next morning when they got up, they actually noticed that they haven't moved an inch. They were still at the same place. So the leader of the party inquired from the person who was leading in the boat, what happened? Why is that? So that person said, I don't know. We were rowing the whole night. And everybody was perplexed, up to the point till they found out that actually they forgot to pull the anchor. So the boatman was rowing the whole night, but because the anchor was not lifted, they didn't move an inch. So Prabhupada used that and said, that is, we have to be very careful, and we have to lift the anchor of trying to being attached to material happiness. So we have to realize and to give that up in order to achieve the spiritual perfection and reach the goal, going home back to Godhead. We have to give up that tendency to enjoy. So that means we have to lift that anchor. The motivation shouldn't be, because that is actually what everybody is striving for in order to become happy, but materially happy. All this nowadays, this technology, what the whole human society is striving for is actually to enjoy better, to give more comfort to the body. But that actually won't help. That desire is what binds us to this material existence. As it is stated, we have to understand that whatever we do has to be done as a sacrifice for Vishnu. Otherwise, activities will bind ourselves. As Krishna says, that the living entity is entitled to perform his duty, but he is not entitled to enjoy the fruits of his work. The fruits are actually meant to be given to Krishna. And that is the meaning of pure devotional service. But it's not that if we living entities give the results to Krishna that we won't get anything. Prabhupada makes that very vivid point. He says, not at all, We actually will get thousands and million times of more joy. Because by conducting our duties, our activities for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we will actually partake of the transcendental happiness. That is a happiness which is not from this world. Happiness in this world has always a beginning and an end. That's why karma kanda. We can't experience lasting happiness in this world. There always will be a beginning and the end. But the spiritual happiness is everlasting. And not only everlasting, Prabhupada also says it's ever increasing. Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Swaranam. At every step it actually increases. And that is what we really are looking for. As it has been stated, Satchitananda Vigraha. Our real identity is Satchit Ananda, means eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. But that only can be achieved if we give up that tendency to enjoy. Okay, so thank you very much. Are there any comments, questions?
I have two questions going related to the verse. Two aspects I found very striking. One was within the verse and one is when I compared it to yesterday's verse. And today's verse, it talks about how a Brahmana, so to speak, becomes a better Brahmana, etc., etc. And then the Shudra becomes the best of devotee. So that was something I found very striking, that why is it that it's mentioned that just the Shudra becomes the best of the devotee, but the Brahmana becomes a better Brahmana, Vaishya becomes a better Vaishya?
I was also questioning myself when I read that. And then I was reading the purport. Somehow or other, Prabhupada goes a little into that direction, but he doesn't really. Well, going that direction, I mean like Kalo Shudra Sambhava. In Kali Yuga, everybody is a Sudra. As well as also another point, Jamana Jayate Sudra, that by birth everybody is a Sudra. Then Sanskrit, Samskriti Bhavet, Advija, Veda Padit Bhavet, Vipra, Brahmachananti, Brahmana. As by birth everybody is a Sudra, but then by purificatory processes, samskar, one gets twice born, and by studying the Vedas, one becomes a Vipra, a learned man, and finally realizing Brahma, one becomes a Brahmana. So that means that there are different stages. It has been that Vedic scriptures follows like that. Initiation is only given to Brahman. Prabhupada makes the point. So, Sudras, they don't get initiation. What is the meaning of Sudra? Sudra means uneducated, ignorant. At one point, I found very interesting, Prabhupada actually also makes that distinction. Sudra means no confidence. According to Varnashram Dharma, he says that Brahman means full confidence in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Meaning that Brahmana doesn't worry because he has full confidence that Krishna will take care. So he's independent. He doesn't, especially considering he doesn't ask for payment. Whatever comes, he gives. Like one sign of Brahman is he doesn't receive any payment. People naturally come and donate him. And he says Kshatriya has a little less confidence. And when we can see it, what a Kshatriya does, he just goes and grabs what he wants and doesn't ask. He has the power. He does it. And Vaishya has a little less. So he does business. And he gets active, in cultivating the land. And Brahman has no confidence. That's why he is dependent upon the others. That's another thing of Shudra is dependent on the other classes. So, maybe that's one aspect.
On this point, it's also interesting that Prabhupada, the translation he gives here of the word, like the word he uses, right, is in the verse it says Satamatam, the position of a great devotee. Prabhupada translates, but literally it just means the best of them. So Prabhupada translates it differently as he makes a point of the devotee.
You see, the other consideration is actually also, it's very simple. I mean, what Shudra means? Shudra means servant. And we want to become servant, the servant of the servant of the servant. That also came to my mind when I read it. You know, finally, it's, you know, Naham Vipranachanai Pati. We're neither, you know, like a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Shudra, or Vaishya. Neither are we Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, or Sannyas. You know, the only thing we are striving for is actually to become the servant of the servant, of the servant, of the lotus eye, Sri Krishna. So
in that sense, the best of servants. Shudra means, so the best of Shudras is the best of servants.
yeah, and what is, exactly, and what is the best of servants, you know? Is the servant of Krishna, meaning the servant of the servant. That means, you know, like, from the lowest to the highest. And isn't that what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came for in order to, you know, like, deliver, you know, the lowest?
Thank you very much. At the beginning of the lecture, you mentioned that Vedanta, when understood in an impersonal way, it can be atheistic. Can you say more about that, and especially what it means impersonal? Thank you.
Yes, like the Vedanta sutras are actually describing in a sort of impersonal way the absolute truth. But Prabhupada makes a point, but the natural commentary which was written by Srila Vyasadeva's Srimad Bhagavatam, which clearly states. But generally, you know, like Vedanta Sutra is the top. But we as Vaishnavas, we accept that natural commentary. That's also an interesting thing in that regard. After Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and established, you know, like Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita as the main scriptures for Gaudiya Vaishnavas, you know. At a certain time from the other Sampradayas, there was the challenge that it is not a bona fide Sampradaya unless you have a commentary on Vedanta Sutra. So, naturally the comment which was given is that there is no need for a commentary, because the natural commentary was already given by Sri Vyasadeva, the incarnation of God, which is Srimad Bhagavatam. Still the different sampradayas, you know, put that forward. So then it was Vishnavat Chakravarti Thakur which actually requested Baladev Vidyabhushan to write a commentary, because Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was already quite old in age. He instructed finally to Baladev Vidyabhushan on the occasion that there was a meeting which was held by the king of Rajasthan, Jaipur, where all, like the different exponents from different sampradayas, Sri Sampradaya, would come, and there was a dispute, a challenge. So Vishwanath Thakur asked Baladev Vibhushan to go there to